I stood at the back of the wedding reception, a glass of champagne I wouldn't drink in my hand, watching my daughter Lisa dance with her new husband Frank, the man who'd been my business partner for 30 years, the man who'd systematically destroyed everything I'd built, the man who was 50 years old and had just married my 35-year-old daughter. The reception was elegant, expensive. Frank had spared no expense. Of course he hadn't. He was paying for it with money from the company I'd founded 40 years ago, the company he'd stolen from me 3 years earlier. I'd debated whether to attend. Lisa had sent the invitation with a handwritten note. "Dad, I know this is complicated, but you're still my father. Please come. Please be happy for me." I'd come, not to be happy for her, but to observe, to watch Frank celebrate his victory, to let him think he'd won completely. Because in exactly 30 days, my non-compete agreement would expire. And then Frank was going to learn what happened when you betrayed the man who'd taught you everything about the construction business. I watched them cut the cake, pose for photos, accept congratulations from guests who didn't know the real story. Then I heard Frank's voice from a cluster of men near the bar, his groomsmen, his new executives from the company. I moved closer, staying just out of sight behind a column. "Victor actually showed up," one of them said, laughing. "That takes guts. Coming to watch his daughter marry the guy who pushed him out." "He had no choice," Frank replied, his voice carrying that confident tone I'd once admired. "Lisa wanted him here, and Victor always gives Lisa what she wants. That's his weakness, always has been." "Do you think he knows about you and Lisa before the divorce?" Frank laughed. "Probably. But what's he going to do? He signed the retirement agreement. He took the buyout. He's bound by a non-compete for 3 years. By the time that expires, I'll have this company so locked down he couldn't touch it if he tried. And honestly, he's 66 years old. He's done. Victor Monroe's time is over." The other men laughed. I remained perfectly still behind my column, listening to every word. "What about the clients?" another voice asked. "Some of them have been with Victor since the beginning. Won't they be loyal to him?" "They're loyal to whoever can deliver projects on time and under budget," Frank said dismissively. "Victor was good in his day, but construction has changed. It's all about technology now, efficiency, modern methods. Victor's old school. His clients will stay with us because we're better." I'd heard enough. I set down my champagne glass and walked toward the exit. Lisa intercepted me near the door. "Dad," she said, her wedding dress rustling as she hurried over, "you're not leaving already." "I've stayed long enough," I said, forcing a smile. "Congratulations, Lisa. I hope you'll be very happy." "Dad, I know you're upset about how things worked out with the company, but Frank and we're good together. He makes me happy. Can't you just be happy for me?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She'd always been beautiful, but now there was something harder in her eyes, something calculating. She knew exactly what Frank had done. She'd probably helped him do it. "I want you to be happy," I said carefully. "But Lisa, business and family don't mix well." I learned that the hard way. "Frank is family now," she said, touching my arm. "Maybe in time you and he can work things out. Maybe you can even come back to the company in some capacity, consulting or something." The audacity of it took my breath away. Come back to my own company as a consultant, work for the man who'd stolen it from me, report to my daughter's husband. "We'll see," I said neutrally. "Enjoy your wedding, sweetheart." I left before she could say more. As I drove home through the city I'd built half of, I thought about how I'd gotten here. My name is Victor Monroe. I'm 66 years old. 43 years ago, fresh out of technical college with a degree in construction management, I'd started Monroe Construction with $5,000 in savings and a pickup truck. For the first 15 years, I'd worked alone, taking small jobs, building a reputation for quality and reliability. Then I'd hired Frank Weber as a project manager. He was 20, ambitious, smart. I'd taught him everything: how to read blueprints, how to manage crews, how to estimate costs, how to build relationships with clients. Over the years, as the company grew, I'd promoted him repeatedly. Eventually, I'd made him a partner, giving him 40% ownership while I retained 60%. That had been my first mistake. My second mistake had been trusting him with my family. Frank had become like a son to me. He'd been at every family dinner, every holiday, every birthday party for my 3 children. He'd called me mentor, friend, almost father. I'd believed him. My wife Catherine had died 8 years ago from ovarian cancer. After her death, I'd thrown myself into work even harder. The company became my refuge. Frank had been there, supportive, helping manage both the business and my grief. That's when he'd started positioning himself to take over. It had been subtle at first, suggestions that I should slow down, that I was working too hard. Recommendations that we promote younger managers who could bring fresh energy to the company. Comments to clients that Victor was thinking about retirement even though I wasn't. Then, 3 years ago, Frank had proposed what he'd called a succession plan. He'd brought in lawyers, accountants, consultants. They'd all recommended that I step back from day-to-day operations, that I transition to an advisory role, that I sell Frank additional shares to give him majority control. I'd resisted. The company was my life's work. I wasn't ready to step back. I was 63, still healthy, still sharp, still capable of running the business I'd built. That's when Frank had played his trump card. He'd been having an affair with my daughter Lisa for 6 months. Lisa had been divorced for 2 years, vulnerable, looking for stability. Frank had provided that while simultaneously using their relationship as leverage against me. "Victor, think about Lisa," Frank had said during one particularly heated negotiation. "She's part of my life now. We're serious. If you and I are in conflict, it puts her in an impossible position. Is that what you want for your daughter?" The manipulation had been masterful. Either I accepted his terms or I risked alienating my daughter. Either I stepped aside gracefully or I became the villain who couldn't accept his daughter's happiness. I'd signed the agreement, sold Frank an additional 30% of the company, giving him 70% control, accepted a buyout for my remaining 30% worth $3.5 million. Signed a 3-year non-compete agreement preventing me from working in the construction industry within a 200-mile radius. I'd told myself I was being a good father, that Lisa's happiness mattered more than my pride, that $3.5 million was enough to retire comfortably. But I'd watched Frank systematically erase me from the company. He'd changed the name from Monroe Construction to Weber Construction Group. He'd rebranded completely, removing my name from every truck, every sign, every document. He'd promoted his own people and pushed out the employees who'd been loyal to me. He'd even changed the office, removing photos and awards that had documented my 40 years of building the company. Within 6 months of my retirement, it was as if I'd never existed. The company I'd founded, the business I'd built from nothing, had become Frank's, and he'd used my daughter to steal it. For 3 years, I'd waited. I'd kept track of the non-compete expiration date like a prisoner counting down to freedom. I'd watched from a distance as Frank ran my company, winning contracts I'd cultivated relationships for, using methods I'd developed, building on foundations I'd laid. And I'd planned, carefully, quietly, strategically. The non-compete agreement expired in 30 days. I had already filed the paperwork to establish a new company, Monroe & Sons Construction. I'd secured a line of credit. I'd reached out quietly to former employees who'd hated working for Frank. I'd begun reconnecting with old clients, just social calls, nothing that violated the non-compete, but planting seeds, reminding people who'd really built their projects, who they could trust. Frank thought I was done. He thought age and grief and family loyalty had broken me. He thought wrong. The next morning, I drove to my new office. It was small, just a rented space in an industrial park, but it was mine. The sign wasn't up yet, but it would be soon. Monroe & Sons Construction. Named for me and for the 2 sons I had who'd actually stayed loyal to me, David and Michael. David was 40, a civil engineer who'd been working for a competing firm. Michael was 37, a construction project manager at a different company. Neither had wanted to work for Frank after what he'd done to me. Now they were joining me in the new venture. We'd spent the past year planning in secret, careful not to violate the non-compete, but preparing for the moment it expired. David was already in the office when I arrived, reviewing blueprints spread across a folding table. He looked up and smiled when I saw me. "Dad, I've been running numbers on the Thompson project. If we can win that bid, It's enough to sustain us for the first 8 months while we build the client base. The Thompson project was a $15 million commercial development. The developer, Jack Thompson, had been one of my first major clients 30 years ago. I'd built his first shopping center, his first office building, his first residential complex. We'd done over $200 million in projects together over the decades. When I'd retired, Jack had been forced to work with Frank. But I'd heard through industry contacts that Jack wasn't happy. Frank had gone over budget on 2 projects. He'd missed deadlines. He'd cut corners Jack had explicitly forbidden. "I'm meeting with Jack next week," I said, "after the non-compete expires. We'll present him with a proposal that's both lower cost and higher quality than anything Frank can offer." "You think he'll switch?" "Jack Thompson is loyal to people who deliver what they promise. Frank hasn't been delivering. We will." Michael arrived an hour later with coffee and more good news. "I've been talking to the crews. 7 foremen who used to work for Monroe Construction want to come back. They've been working for Frank, but they hate it. He micromanages, doesn't respect their expertise, changes plans without consultation. They're ready to jump ship the moment we're official." "What about equipment?" I asked. "We can lease everything we need for the first 6 months. After that, if we're profitable, we buy. I've already negotiated terms with 3 equipment rental companies. We spent the day planning logistics, hiring schedules, procurement strategies, marketing approaches. By evening, we had a comprehensive business plan ready to execute the moment my non-compete expired. I drove home feeling energized in a way I hadn't felt in 3 years. This was what I'd been missing. Not just the work, but the challenge, the strategy, the building of something from nothing. My phone rang as I pulled into my driveway. "Lisa." "Dad, I wanted to thank you for coming to the wedding. It meant a lot to Frank and me." "You're welcome," I said neutrally. "Frank mentioned he saw you talking to some of his employees at the reception. He was wondering what you discussed," so Frank had noticed, "and he was worried enough to have Lisa call and probe." "Good. Let him worry." "Just catching up," I said. "I spent 15 years working with some of those men. It's natural to say hello." "Of course. Dad, I also wanted to talk to you about something else. Frank and I are talking about starting a family, having kids, and I'd really like for those kids to have a relationship with their grandfather. But that's going to be hard if you and Frank are still at odds." "I'm not at odds with Frank," I lied smoothly. "I've accepted the situation. I'm retired. Frank runs the company. I'm fine with that." "Really?" "Because Frank seems to think you might be planning something. He's heard rumors you've been contacting old clients." "I've been having lunch with old friends." "Is that forbidden?" "No, of course not. But, Dad, your non-compete agreement expires in 29 days, I interrupted. "I'm aware of the terms, Lisa. I helped negotiate them. So what happens in 29 days? "I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm too old for the construction business. Maybe Frank was right and my time is over." I could hear the relief in her voice. "I'm glad you're being reasonable about this. Frank worries you're going to try to compete with him. But that would be silly, right? He has the clients, the equipment, the reputation. You starting over from scratch at 66 would be impossible." "You're probably right," I said, letting her believe what she wanted to believe. "Give Frank my regards." After hanging up, I sat in my truck for a few minutes thinking about my daughter. She'd chosen Frank over me. She'd participated in stealing my company. She'd married the man who'd betrayed me. Part of me wondered if she actually loved Frank or if she just loved what Frank represented. Security status. The owner's wife instead of the daughter of the retired founder. Access to money and power. It didn't matter. She'd made her choice. Now I was making mine. The next few weeks passed in intense preparation. David, Michael, and I worked 16-hour days setting up the new company. We registered with the state. We secured bonding and insurance. We applied for all necessary permits and licenses. We created a website showcasing projects I'd built over 40 years, emphasizing quality and experience. We also developed what I called the loyalty list. These were the 20 major clients who'd worked with me for decades, developers like Jack Thompson, property management companies, municipal governments. All of them had been forced to work with Frank after I'd retired. Some were happy with him, most weren't. We created customized proposals for each one, lower rates than Weber Construction Group, shorter timelines, guarantees backed by my 40 years of reputation, personal involvement from me on every project, the kind of hands-on service that large companies like Frank's couldn't provide anymore. This is going to work, David said as we reviewed the proposals 3 days before the non-compete expired. These clients remember quality. They remember you. Frank's been coasting on your reputation. Now you're taking it back. More than that, I said. We're going to do what Frank can't. We're going to build better, faster, cheaper. We're going to remember that construction isn't about computers and systems. It's about craftspeople who take pride in their work. Frank forgot that. I never will. 2 days before the expiration, I received a surprise visit. Frank appeared at my house unannounced, driving his new Mercedes, wearing an expensive suit. He looked successful, confident, but I saw tension around his eyes. "Victor, we need to talk," he said when I opened the door. "About what?" "About whatever you're planning. I know you're starting a new company. I know you're going to try to compete with me." "How did you know about that?" "I have friends at the licensing board. They told me you filed for permits." "Victor, don't do this. You're 66 years old. You've been out of the game for 3 years. The industry has changed. You'll fail, lose your investment, embarrass yourself. Is that really how you want to end your legacy?" "My legacy was stolen from me," I said quietly. "By you. Using my daughter as a weapon." Frank had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I care about Lisa. This isn't just about business. Everything with you is about business. You saw an opportunity and you took it. You manipulated Lisa. You manipulated me. You stole my company, and now you're worried I'm going to take it back. You can't. I have 70% control. I have the clients. I have the equipment. I have everything." "You have everything I built," I corrected, "and you've been running it into the ground. I've heard about the Thompson overruns, the Parkview delays, the Riverside quality issues. You're losing clients, Frank. They're just too polite to tell you yet." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. And when my non-compete expires in 2 days, I'm going to start proving it. I'm going to take back every client you stole. I'm going to hire back every good employee you drove away. I'm going to rebuild everything you destroyed. And Frank, by the time I'm done, Weber Construction Group is going to be bankrupt." Frank's face flushed with anger. "You can't do that. I'll sue you. I'll claim you violated the non-compete. I'll tie you up in court for years." "Try it. The non-compete is expiring. Any lawyer will tell you I'm free to compete, but go ahead and sue. It'll give me another opportunity to publicly explain how you stole my company. I'm sure clients will love hearing that story. Lisa will never forgive you if you destroy me. Lisa already chose you over me. I've accepted that. She's your wife now, your problem, your responsibility. And when this business war is over and you've lost everything, you'll have to explain to her why." Frank left without another word. I watched him drive away, his Mercedes kicking up dust on my gravel driveway. He was scared. He'd come here hoping to intimidate me, to convince me not to fight. Instead, he'd confirmed that everything I'd heard was true. His company was struggling. His clients were unhappy. His position was weaker than it appeared. In 2 days, the real battle would begin. And this time, Frank was going to learn what I was capable of when I wasn't handicapped by family loyalty or non-compete restrictions. He'd had 3 years to consolidate his position. I'd had 3 years to plan my revenge. We'd see who'd used their time better. So far, Victor attended his daughter Lisa's wedding to Frank, the business partner who stole his construction company 3 years ago. While Frank celebrated thinking Victor was finished, Victor revealed he'd spent 3 years planning revenge. With sons David and Michael, he established Monroe and Sons Construction, recruited former employees, and prepared proposals for Frank's unhappy clients. Frank visited desperately trying to intimidate Victor, but learned Victor planned to destroy him completely. Now, the non-compete agreement expires today, and the real battle begins. The morning the non-compete expired, I arrived at the Monroe and Sons office at 5 a.m. David and Michael were already there, along with our first 3 hires, former Monroe construction employees who'd quit working for Frank the moment they'd heard I was coming back. "Today's the day," David said, handing me coffee. "We're officially in business. The website goes live in 10 minutes. The signs are being installed on the building right now. Phone lines are active. We're ready." I looked around the small office. It was nothing like the sprawling headquarters Frank now occupied, the building I'd designed and paid for 20 years ago. But this office was mine, built with my money, on my terms for my company. "Send the proposals," I said. "All 20 clients. Personalized letters from me explaining that I'm back in business and I'd be honored to work with them again. Include the specific cost savings and timeline improvements we can offer compared to their current contractor." Michael pulled up his laptop. "Emails are drafted and ready." I hit send. "Do it." 20 emails went out simultaneously to the 20 major clients on our loyalty list, each one carefully crafted to remind them of our history together, highlight Frank's recent failures, and offer them something better. Better prices, better quality, better service, and the personal involvement of Victor Monroe, the man who'd built half this city's major projects. By 8 a.m., we had our first response, Jack Thompson. "Victor, I got your email. Can you come to my office this morning? I want to discuss the Riverside Commons project." Riverside Commons was the $15 million development we'd been targeting. Frank currently held the contract, but according to my sources, he was already 8 weeks behind schedule and $600,000 over budget. Jack was furious, but contractually obligated to let Frank finish. I arrived at Jack's office at 9. He was 68, 2 years older than me, a self-made developer who'd built his empire through the same hard work and integrity I'd used to build mine. We'd started our careers around the same time. We'd grown together. "Victor," Jack said, shaking my hand firmly, "it's damn good to see you. I've missed working with you. I've missed the work, Jack. 3 years was a long retirement." "Retirement hell. Frank pushed you out. I know it and you know it. And I'll tell you something, Victor. It was the worst thing that ever happened to my business. Frank Weber is not half the builder you are." "I've heard there have been problems with Riverside Commons." "Problems? That's generous. He's 8 weeks late. The framing crew he hired did substandard work that had to be completely redone. He's cutting corners on materials. He's ignoring my specifications. Victor, I'm locked into this contract with him, but the moment it's done, I'm never working with Weber Construction again." "What if you didn't have to wait?" Jack looked at me carefully. "What are you suggesting?" "Frank's contract has performance clauses. If he continues to miss deadlines or fails to meet quality standards, you have grounds to terminate for cause. I've reviewed the contract. He's already violated 3 major provisions." "I'd still have to pay him for work completed." "Yes, but then you could hire me to finish the project properly." "Jack, I can have this project completed in 6 months under your original budget to your exact specifications. Frank will take another year and cost you $2 million more than planned. Which would you prefer?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. "If I terminate Frank's contract, it'll be war. He'll sue me. He'll badmouth me in the industry." "He'll try." "But Jack, your reputation is solid. Mine is solid. Frank's reputation is starting to crack. People know about the delays and cost overruns. They know about quality issues. If you terminate him for documented cause and hire me to fix his mistakes, the industry will understand. They'll respect you for it." "And what about your daughter?" "Lisa's married to Frank now. This will put her in an impossible position." "Lisa chose Frank knowing what he'd done to me. She chose money and status over integrity. That was her decision. I'm not responsible for protecting her from the consequences of her husband's failures." Jack nodded slowly. "Let me review the contract with my attorneys. If they confirm I have grounds to terminate, will you be ready to take over immediately?" "I have crews on standby, equipment ready. I can have people on site within 48 hours of you signing our contract." "Then let's make it happen. I'll call you by the end of day tomorrow." I left Jack's office knowing I'd won the first major battle. The Thompson project alone would sustain Monroe and Sons for 8 months, but more importantly, it would send a message to every other client on my list. Victor Monroe was back, and he was better than Frank Weber. By noon, 3 more clients had responded to our proposals. 2 wanted meetings scheduled. 1, a property management company I'd worked with for 25 years, switched to us immediately. They had 3 smaller projects worth a combined $4 million. Frank had been treating them poorly, raising prices without justification, delivering mediocre work. "Victor, We only stayed with Weber because we thought you were retired permanently, the company president told me over the phone. If you're back, we're back with you. Send us contracts. By end of day, we'd secured $7 million in new contracts. David, Michael, and I celebrated with pizza in the office, reviewing our pipeline, planning crew assignments. Dad, this is incredible, Michael said. First day back and we already have enough work for 6 months. This is just the beginning, I said. Frank's clients are unhappy. They were loyal to Monroe Construction, not to Frank Weber. As word spreads that I'm back, more will switch. We just need to deliver exceptional work on every project. Prove that quality still matters. The next morning, Jack Thompson called. Victor, my attorneys reviewed the contract. Frank has violated performance clauses on schedule, budget, and quality. I'm terminating his contract effective immediately. Can you be here at 2 p.m. to sign ours? I'll be there. At 2 p.m. I signed a $12 million contract to complete Riverside Commons, the remaining work after Frank's termination. It was the biggest contract Monroe & Sons had signed, and it meant Frank had just lost his largest active project. I called David and Michael immediately. Get the crews ready. We start on Riverside Commons Monday morning. I want every man working double time. I want this project finished in 5 months, ahead of schedule, under budget, perfect quality. This is our statement project. This is how we announce to the industry that Monroe & Sons is the premier construction company in the region. That evening, Frank called me. He was shouting before I could even say hello. You son of a bitch! You stole my project! You convinced Jack to terminate my contract! I'm going to sue you for tortious interference. Sue me if you want, Frank. Jack terminated your contract because you violated performance provisions. That's between you and Jack. I just offered him a better alternative. This is about revenge. You're trying to destroy me because you can't accept that I'm running the company now. You're not running a company, Frank. You're running my company into the ground, and I'm offering clients an alternative. Better work, better prices, better service. If you can't compete with that, maybe you shouldn't be in this business. I taught you everything I know. No, Frank. I taught you everything you know. You seem to have forgotten that. You also seem to have forgotten that reputation in this industry is everything. And right now, your reputation is sinking while mine is rising again. Lisa is devastated. She's crying. You're destroying her marriage. I'm competing in a free market. If your marriage can't survive business competition, that's not my problem. You used Lisa to steal my company. Don't expect me to protect her from the consequences. Frank hung up. I suspected he was about to have a very difficult conversation with his wife. I was right. Lisa called an hour later, her voice tight with anger and tears. Dad, how could you do this? Jack Thompson was Frank's biggest client. That project was crucial for the company. You're sabotaging him deliberately. I'm running a business, Lisa. I offered Jack better terms and better quality. He chose to work with me. That's how free markets work. This isn't about business. This is about revenge. You're trying to punish Frank for marrying me. I'm trying to rebuild what Frank stole from me. If his company suffers as a result, that's because he can't compete with quality work at competitive prices. You're destroying us. Do you understand that? Frank's company is his entire identity. If it fails, it'll destroy him. It'll destroy our marriage. It'll destroy our future. Is that what you want? To destroy your own daughter's happiness? You chose Frank over me, Lisa. You participated in stealing my company. You married the man who betrayed me. You don't get to demand I protect you from consequences now. I'm your daughter, and you sided with my enemy. That was your choice. Now live with it. I hung up. Part of me felt guilty. She was my daughter. I'd raised her. I'd loved her. But she'd made her choice 3 years ago. She'd chosen money and status and Frank. Now, she'd learn what it meant to choose wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, the defections accelerated. 2 more major clients switched to Monroe & Sons. 4 of Frank's best foremen quit Weber Construction and came to work for me, bringing their crews with them. Frank's company, which had seemed invincible a month ago, was suddenly hemorrhaging clients and employees. I ran into Frank at an industry association meeting. He looked haggard, stressed. He'd lost weight. The confidence was gone, replaced by desperation. Victor, we need to talk, he said, cornering me near the bar. About what? About calling a truce. This war between us is destroying both our companies. It's destroying your company. Mine is thriving. Victor, please. For Lisa's sake, if nothing else, can't we figure out a way to coexist? You didn't want to coexist 3 years ago, Frank. You wanted total control. You forced me out. You stole my company. Now you're experiencing what happens when someone better comes back into the market. I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry for how things went down. I was ambitious. I made mistakes. But Victor, you taught me this business. Doesn't that count for something? I taught you how to build. I taught you how to manage crews. I taught you how to win clients through quality work. But I never taught you how to lie. I never taught you how to manipulate. I never taught you how to betray the people who trusted you. You learned that on your own. What do you want? Money? I'll buy you out again. Name your price. There is no price, Frank. I don't want money from you. I want you to fail. I want you to lose everything like I lost everything. I want you to understand what betrayal costs. You're destroying Lisa too. She's falling apart. The stress is killing her. Is that what you want? What I want is for her to see who she married. A man who steals from his mentor. A man who uses her as a weapon. A man who crumbles the moment he faces real competition. Maybe when your company collapses, she'll understand what she chose. Frank walked away without another word. I felt no pity. He'd had 3 years to run my company properly. Instead, he'd coasted on my reputation while delivering mediocre work. Now he was paying the price. A week later, David came into my office with news. Dad, I just heard from a source at Weber Construction. Frank's having serious cash flow problems. He's had to take out emergency loans to meet payroll. 2 more clients have switched to competitors, not to us, but to other companies. His reputation is tanking. Good. How are our projects going? Riverside Commons is ahead of schedule. We'll finish a month early. The property management projects are all on track. Client satisfaction is through the roof. We're getting referrals. Victor, we've got more work than we can handle. We need to hire more people. Do it. Hire the best people. Pay them well. Treat them right. Let's build this company the way I built Monroe Construction originally, through quality and integrity. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor. Lisa's older sister, Karen. She was 43, a school teacher, someone who'd stayed neutral in the conflict between Frank and me. Dad, can we talk? She asked when I opened the door. Of course. Come in. We sat in my living room. Karen looked uncomfortable. I need to tell you something about Lisa. Something you might not know. What is it? Lisa knew what Frank was planning. 3 years ago, before you retired. She knew he was going to push you out. She helped him plan it. Dad, she wasn't a victim in this. She was a willing participant. I wasn't surprised, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. How do you know? She told me. 2 years ago, after she'd married Frank, she was drunk, celebrating some business success. She said it had all gone exactly as planned, that Frank had promised her she'd be the owner's wife instead of just the founder's daughter, that she'd encouraged him to push you out because she wanted the lifestyle that came with being married to the company owner. Why are you telling me this now? Because she's been calling me crying, saying you're destroying her life, saying you're being cruel and vindictive, and I can't let her play the victim anymore. She made her choice. She helped Frank steal your company. She chose greed over you. You don't owe her protection from consequences. Thank you for telling me. It confirms what I suspected. Dad, I'm sorry. For what Lisa did. For what Frank did. You didn't deserve it. No, I didn't. But I'm fixing it now. Karen left and I sat alone thinking about Lisa. My daughter had actively participated in destroying me. It hadn't been just Frank. She'd been part of the conspiracy. She'd wanted me gone so she could enjoy the benefits of being Frank's wife without the complication of me as the company founder. Well, she'd gotten what she wanted. And now she was getting the consequences too. The next morning, I received a call from Weber Construction's bank. They were concerned about Frank's financial position. They'd heard rumors of cash flow problems. They wanted to know if I was interested in purchasing Weber Construction's assets if the company went into receivership. Not interested in purchasing, I told the bank officer, but I'd be interested in hiring his skilled employees if they become available. Understood. We'll keep you informed. Frank's company was failing, fast. Within 6 weeks of my return to the market, I'd taken 4 of his major clients, recruited his best employees, and established Monroe & Sons as the premier construction company in the region. Frank, meanwhile, was struggling to keep his doors open. His reputation was damaged. His clients were unhappy. His employees were leaving. The company I'd built over 40 years was collapsing under his leadership, and I felt no remorse, only satisfaction. Justice had a price. Frank was paying it, and I was just getting started. So far, Victor launched Monroe & Sons Construction the day his non-compete expired and immediately began destroying Frank's business. Within 6 weeks, he stole major clients, including the $12 million Thompson project, recruited Frank's best employees, and established his company as the industry leader. Frank's Weber Construction hemorrhaged clients and cash, forcing emergency loans to meet payroll. Lisa's marriage crumbled under stress, and Victor learned from Lisa's sister Karen that Lisa had actively conspired with Frank 3 years ago to push him out. Now, Frank's company faces imminent collapse, and Victor is preparing the final blow. 3 months after my return to the construction business, I received the call I'd been waiting for. Weber Construction's primary lender was calling in their loans. Frank had missed 2 consecutive payments. The bank was initiating foreclosure proceedings on company assets. "Mr. Monroe, we wanted to notify you as a courtesy," the bank officer said. "Weber Construction will be liquidating assets to satisfy debt obligations. Construction equipment, vehicles, office furniture, client contracts, everything is being sold. We know you've been successful since returning to the market. Would Monroe & Sons be interested in purchasing any assets?" "Send me the inventory list," I said. "I'll review it." The list arrived that afternoon. 40 pieces of heavy equipment, 23 trucks and vehicles, office equipment, and most interesting, the building. The headquarters building I'd designed and paid for 22 years ago when Monroe Construction had been thriving. Frank had renamed it, remodeled it, tried to erase me from it, but the bones were still mine. I called David and Michael into my office. "Weber Construction is being liquidated. The bank is selling everything, including the headquarters building." "The building you designed?" David asked. "Yes, I want to buy it. I want to move Monroe & Sons into that building. I want to come home, Dad." "That's going to devastate Frank. He'll lose everything. The company, the building, his entire identity. He devastated me 3 years ago. He stole my company, erased my legacy, used my daughter to do it. Now I'm taking it all back. Not just competing with him, taking back what was mine." Michael nodded slowly. "How much are they asking for the building?" $2.8 million. It's worth $4 million, but they're motivated sellers. We can afford it with our current contracts and line of credit." "Do it," David said. "Buy the building, buy the equipment, hire Frank's remaining employees, take everything. He deserves it." I submitted an offer that evening. Cash purchase, no contingencies, close in 30 days. The bank accepted immediately. They were relieved to have a buyer who could move quickly. The news spread through the construction industry within hours. Victor Monroe was buying the Weber Construction headquarters. The building he'd originally built, the company he'd founded, was coming home. Frank called me that night. He wasn't shouting this time. His voice was hollow, defeated. "Victor, please, don't buy the building. It's all I have left. If you take that, I have nothing. No company, no assets, nothing. You took everything from me 3 years ago, Frank. Did you care then that I'd have nothing? I left you $3.5 million. You weren't destroyed. You were retired comfortably. You took my life's work. You erased my legacy. You stole my company and used my daughter to do it. Money doesn't replace that. And now you're experiencing exactly what you did to me. Except you don't have 40 years of reputation to rebuild from. You don't have the skills and relationships I have. When I destroy you, you stay destroyed. Victor, I'm begging you. For Lisa's sake. She's your daughter. This is destroying her. Our marriage is falling apart. She's having panic attacks. She can't sleep. Is this really what you want for her? Lisa made her choice. She chose you. She chose money and status over integrity and family. She helped you steal my company. Now she can experience the consequences with you. You're a monster. Your own daughter is suffering and you don't care. I care deeply. That's why this hurts. But Frank, she betrayed me. She conspired with you. She wasn't a victim, she was a participant, and I won't protect her from the results of her choices any more than I'll protect you. What do you want? What will make this stop? I want you to fail completely. I want you to lose everything. I want you to understand, truly understand, what betrayal costs. You stole my company thinking I was too old and broken to fight back. You were wrong. And now you're learning that lesson the hardest way possible. Frank hung up. I sat in my study thinking about Lisa. Karen had told me the truth, that Lisa had been part of the conspiracy from the beginning. But she was still my daughter. Part of me wanted to relent, to show mercy, to help her somehow. But I couldn't. She'd made her choice. If I backed down now, I'd be teaching her that betrayal had no real consequences, that she could conspire against her own father and face no lasting repercussions. That wasn't the lesson I wanted her to learn. The building purchase closed 4 weeks later. I stood in the lobby that I'd designed 2 decades ago, seeing my vision restored. David and Michael had organized the move. Monroe and Sons Construction was now headquartered in the building Monroe Construction had originally occupied. We'd kept some of Frank's remodeling, the parts that worked, but we'd removed his branding, his photos, his attempts to erase me. We'd restored the original name on the building, Monroe Construction Headquarters. Frank's brief tenure as owner was being erased just as thoroughly as he'd erased me. Frank's remaining employees, 17 people, had all accepted positions with Monroe and Sons. They were relieved to have jobs. Many told me they'd only stayed with Frank out of loyalty to the company's history, not to Frank personally. Now they were back where they belonged. Weber Construction officially dissolved 6 weeks after the building sale. Frank filed for bankruptcy, both corporate and personal. The company that had once been Monroe Construction, that Frank had renamed and claimed as his own, ceased to exist. I felt no triumph, just satisfaction. Justice had been served. Lisa called me 2 days after the bankruptcy filing. She sounded exhausted, defeated. "Dad, can we meet?" "Please, I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About everything. About what happened. About Frank. About us." "Please, Dad." "Just coffee." 30 minutes. I agreed to meet her at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. She arrived looking thin, stressed. The confident woman who'd married Frank had been replaced by someone fragile, uncertain. "Dad, thank you for seeing me," she said, sitting across from me. "I wasn't sure you would. You're still my daughter, Lisa. I'll always see you, but that doesn't mean I'll forget what you did." "I know. And Dad, I need to tell you something. Karen told you I knew about Frank's plan, that I helped him. She was right. I did. And I need to say I'm sorry." "Why did you do it? Why did you help him steal my company?" Lisa was quiet for a long moment, tears forming in her eyes. "Because I was angry at you. Mom died, and you buried yourself in work. You weren't there for me, for any of us. You were always at the company, always building, always working. Frank paid attention to me. He made me feel important. And when he said we could build a life together, that I could be the owner's wife instead of always being in your shadow, it sounded good. It sounded like what I deserved. So you helped him destroy me because I worked too much after your mother died?" I was hurt. I was angry. And Frank made it seem reasonable. He said you were ready to retire anyway, that we were just accelerating the inevitable, that you'd be fine with the buyout money. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Did you ever consider what it would do to me? Losing my life's work? Being erased from the company I built? I didn't think you'd care that much. I thought the money would be enough. Dad, I was wrong. I was selfish and wrong, and I've spent 3 years regretting it. But I couldn't admit it, because I'd married Frank. I'd committed to him. I couldn't undo what we'd done. And now? Now Frank has nothing. Our marriage is over. I'm filing for divorce, and I've lost you, my father, because of choices I made out of anger and greed. I destroyed my own family for a man who turned out to be weak and incompetent, and I have to live with that. I looked at my daughter, seeing genuine remorse for the first time. But remorse didn't undo the damage. It didn't give me back 3 years of my life. It didn't erase the betrayal. Lisa, I appreciate you telling me this. I appreciate the apology. But I can't just forgive and move forward. You and Frank hurt me deeply. You stole something irreplaceable. And while I'm glad you recognize that now, It doesn't change what happened. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just wanted you to know I understand what I did. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Are you divorcing Frank because he failed, or because you realize he was wrong? Both. He's not who I thought he was. When things got hard, when your company started taking his clients, he fell apart. He blamed everyone but himself. He couldn't accept that he'd failed because he wasn't as good as you. And watching him collapse, I realized I'd traded my father for a weak man who'd built his success on stolen foundation. What will you do now? I don't know. Start over. Figure out who I am without Frank, without the lifestyle I thought I wanted. Maybe try to be a better person than I was. Dad, I know I don't deserve your help or your support, but I want you to know I'm going to try to fix myself, to be someone you could be proud of again someday. I hope you do, Lisa. For your sake, not mine. You need to live with your choices. I hope you learn from them. We parted without hugging, without promises of reconciliation. There was too much damage, too much hurt. Maybe someday we'd rebuild a relationship. Maybe not. But at least she'd finally been honest. That was something. 6 months after returning to the construction business, Monroe & Sons had become the dominant company in the region. We'd completed the Thompson project 4 weeks early and $200,000 under budget. Jack Thompson had given us 3 new projects worth a combined $30 million. Other clients had followed. We had more work than we could handle. I hired 50 employees, many of them former Monroe construction people who'd left when Frank took over. The team was rebuilding, the culture was healthy, the reputation was growing. We were doing it right this time. Quality work, fair prices, treating people with respect. David and Michael were thriving as partners. David handled the engineering and planning. Michael managed the field operations. I oversaw everything, providing guidance, using my 43 years of experience to avoid problems before they started. We'd also established something Frank never had, a succession plan that actually worked. David and Michael would take over when I eventually retired for real. The company would stay in family hands, good family hands, people who valued integrity. Frank disappeared after the bankruptcy. I heard he'd moved to another state, was working as a project manager for someone else's company. His reputation in our region was destroyed. He'd never rebuild here. Maybe he'd learned something from the experience. Probably not. Lisa filed for divorce and moved into a small apartment. She'd lost the lifestyle, the status, everything she'd wanted when she'd married Frank. I didn't help her financially. She needed to stand on her own, to understand the full weight of her choices. But I didn't cut her off completely either. I sent her birthday cards. I asked David and Michael to stay in touch with her. The door to reconciliation wasn't open yet, but it wasn't permanently locked. 1 year after my return to construction, I stood in my office in the headquarters building I'd designed decades ago, the same office I'd occupied before Frank stole the company. Everything had come full circle. Monroe & Sons Construction was thriving. We had 60 employees, $40 million in annual revenue. A reputation as the best builder in the region. Client satisfaction was perfect. Employee retention was excellent. The company was everything I'd built before, but better. Built on a stronger foundation this time. I received a call from the industry association. They were giving me a Lifetime Achievement Award, recognition for my contributions to construction over 4 decades. The ceremony would be in 3 months. We'd also like you to speak, the association president said. Share your story. Your journey. A lot of younger builders look up to you. Your comeback after forced retirement has been inspirational. I'll speak, I said. I have some things to say about loyalty, integrity, and betrayal. The ceremony was held at a downtown hotel, attended by 300 construction professionals. Frank wasn't there. He couldn't show his face at industry events anymore. But many of the people who'd worked with me over the decades were present. When I took the stage to accept the award and give my speech, I looked out at the audience and saw David and Michael in the front row, my sons who'd stood by me, Karen, Lisa's sister, who'd told me the truth, Jack Thompson and other loyal clients, former employees who'd returned to Monroe & Sons, and in the back, standing near the door, Lisa. She'd come. I hadn't expected her to. We still weren't close, still hadn't fully reconciled. but she'd come to see her father honored. I delivered my speech telling my story honestly. The building of Monroe Construction over 40 years, the betrayal by my partner and daughter, the forced retirement, the 3 years of planning revenge, the comeback, the destruction of the man who'd stolen my company. I'm not going to stand here and tell you forgiveness is always the answer, I said. Sometimes when someone betrays you, the right response is to fight back, to use every skill you have, every relationship you've built, every bit of knowledge you've accumulated to defend what's yours and destroy those who tried to take it. The audience was silent, listening intently. Frank Weber thought I was finished. He thought 63 was too old to fight. He thought retirement meant surrender. He was wrong. I spent 3 years preparing, and when my non-compete expired, I came back stronger than ever. I didn't just survive his betrayal. I used it as motivation to build something better than what he'd stolen. I paused, looking at Lisa in the back of the room. Betrayal changes you. It teaches you who really matters, who's loyal, who's trustworthy. I lost a daughter and a partner to greed, but I gained the wisdom to build something that can't be stolen again. Monroe & Sons is structured so that only family who values integrity can run it. Only people who understand that reputation matters more than profit. Only people who know that how you build is as important as what you build. The speech continued for 20 minutes. I talked about construction as a craft, as a calling, as something that required not just skill but character. I talked about the importance of mentoring young builders while protecting yourself from those who'd exploit that mentorship. I talked about the satisfaction of building things that last, companies and structures that endure beyond one person's lifetime. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted several minutes. People approached me afterward, shaking my hand, congratulating me, thanking me for my honesty. Many shared their own stories of betrayal and comeback. Others asked for advice on protecting their companies from similar situations. Lisa waited until most people had left before approaching me. Dad, that was powerful. Thank you for telling the truth about all of it, including me. You were part of the story, Lisa. I couldn't tell it honestly without including your role. I know, and I deserve to be included. Dad, I'm working with a therapist now, trying to understand why I made the choices I did, why I was willing to hurt you for what turned out to be nothing valuable. That's good. You need to understand yourself. I was wondering if maybe, sometime, we could have dinner. Just the two of us, not to ask for anything or to try to fix everything immediately, just to start building something again. I looked at my daughter, seeing someone different from the woman who'd married Frank, someone humbler, someone who'd learned hard lessons, maybe someone who could eventually be trusted again. All right, dinner. But Lisa, understand that rebuilding trust takes time. You can't erase 3 years of betrayal with a few conversations. I know, I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking for a chance to try. Then we'll try. Slowly. Carefully. But we'll try. That was 2 years ago. Today I'm 68 years old. Monroe & Sons Construction is the most successful building company in the region. We have 90 employees, 65 million in annual revenue. We've won every major industry award. David is president. Michael is chief operating officer. I'm chairman, providing oversight and guidance, but letting them run the daily operations. Lisa and I have rebuilt a relationship. It's not what it was before the betrayal, and it never will be. But it exists. We have dinner once a month. We talk occasionally. She started her own business, a small interior design firm. She's working hard, building something herself instead of trying to benefit from someone else's work. I respect that. She's asked me to forgive her completely. I've told her I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, maybe never. But we have something, which is more than we had 2 years ago. Frank never contacted me again. I heard through industry connections that he's still working as a project manager in another state, making a decent living but never reaching the heights he had when he was running my company. His reputation never recovered. The construction industry has a long memory. People know what he did. They know he stole a company and drove it into the ground. They know he betrayed the man who mentored him. He's not unemployable, but he'll never be trusted with leadership again. That's his consequence. That's what betrayal cost him. As for me, I wake up every morning in my house, drive to my office in the building I designed, and run the company I built. Everything Frank stole, I took back. Everything he destroyed, I rebuilt. Everything he thought he'd won, I reclaimed. People ask me if revenge was worth it, if destroying Frank's company was worth the time and effort and emotional cost. My answer is always the same. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice, about showing that betrayal has consequences, about proving that age doesn't equal weakness and retirement doesn't mean surrender. Frank thought taking my company would end me. Instead, it motivated me to build something better. He thought forcing me out at 63 meant I was finished. Instead, I came back at 66 stronger than ever. He thought using my daughter against me would prevent me from fighting back. Instead, it freed me to fight without restraint. I'm not a victim. I never was. I was a target who had the skills and determination to fight back effectively. I was a builder who knew how to rebuild. I was a businessman who understood that relationships and reputation matter more than momentary advantage. Frank Weber learned the hardest lesson of his life. You don't betray the man who taught you everything. You don't steal from someone who has the knowledge and connections to take it all back. And you don't assume age means powerlessness. I'm 68. I run a thriving company. I'm training my sons to take over someday. I'm rebuilding a relationship with my daughter. I'm living proof that comeback is possible, that justice can be achieved, and that betrayal can be overcome. My name is Victor Monroe. I built a company, lost it to betrayal, and built it again, stronger than before. This is my legacy. Not the money or the buildings or the awards, but the proof that integrity wins, that quality endures, that loyalty matters, and that you're never too old to fight for what's yours. Did you like this story? Let me know in the comments where you're listening from.